Welcome to the Authority File. I'm Bill Mickey, your host and the editorial director at Choice. There's been an increasing amount of activity around making the scholarly monograph open access, a special challenge for a variety of reasons, especially in the social sciences and humanities. There are a number of initiatives underway, and MIT Press joined the race to open last year when, with support from the Arcadia Fund, it launched Direct to Open, a unique program that aims for long-term sustainability. It relies on a collective action model, funded through participation fees, that opens new titles from the press and allows term access to its backlist. Beyond that, the model is specifically designed to be adopted, adapted, and scaled by other university presses. We spoke with the press back in March 2021 when Direct to Open launched. For a great primer on how the program was conceived, we invite you to listen to episodes of the Authority File 182 through 185. Here we are joined once again by Emily Farrell, Library Partnerships and Sales Lead at MIT Press, and Curtis Brundy, Associate University Librarian at Iowa State University. And in the next 4 episodes, brought to you with support from MIT Press, Emily and Curtis update us on Direct to Open's progress and what they've learned along the way. In this first episode, Emily and Curtis catch us up on Direct to Open's initial success. Okay, Emily and Curtis, welcome to the program.
Hi, Bill.
Thank you.
All right, so before we get started, Emily, I was hoping you could briefly just catch us up about MIT Press's Direct to Open project. Just a brief kind of backgrounder on what it is, when it launched, and if you can kind of just tell us a little bit about some of the milestones you've hit along the way.
Absolutely. So Direct to Open is MIT Press's incentivized library collective action model, which allows the press to move our monographs front list, so that's around 90 books a year, to open access on publication. And in essence, the model was built to solve the challenge that we've faced in trying to more comprehensively open our monographs program in a financially sustainable way.
Mm-hmm.
We launched exactly a year ago, so March 2021, and we've really, I think, made some incredible progress and hit some impressive milestones, if I do say so myself. So I'd say the most important milestone was reaching 50% funding by the end of 2021. So we launched in March, so we'd been off and running for less than a year, and to get that far along, we were really pleased. And we're certainly still working towards getting to 100% funding for this year to open the full front list of monographs. But reaching the halfway mark has meant that we were able to commit to opening our spring monographs. So that's 37 books already that we've committed to opening. We started publishing books open already. And it's certainly more books than we've ever been able to open in the front list before.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all due to the support of libraries worldwide coming together to increase access to knowledge through our monographs program. So it's really been quite heartwarming.
Excellent. And Curtis, what initially interests you in this model? Why is it important in general terms?
Well, for Iowa State, we're somewhat unique among U.S. libraries, just in that we have made a pretty significant commitment toward shifting collection spending toward open access. So for us, we're a signatory of OA 2020. Iowa State is a land grant university with a mission to not only create knowledge but to share it with Iowa and the world. So for us, a model like this is incredibly exciting. It's the type of open investment that we're looking for. Some other particular things that are exciting, I think, about it is that it's the type of model that's really easy for a library to participate in. We were already a subscriber to the front list for MIT. But of course, that investment was doing nothing to open up the content. And so from one year to the next, we had an opportunity to move that investment to opening up this content. And from an equity perspective, it's it's huge. It's really exciting. And I think with MIT Press, I mean, this is a bold and exciting move at a time
Mm.
when other university presses, who are prone to being quite conservative, I'm finding the fact that MIT Press is leading the way with this model and by their example, putting a marker in the ground, and leaving breadcrumbs behind so other presses can follow. It's exactly what we want to see. So this couldn't be any more exciting for us.
Yeah, yeah, we'll definitely talk about that breadcrumb trail in a bit. Just to follow on that, Curtis, I'm wondering what you described that MIT made it really easy. What was it sort of easy in the sense that it's sort of a no-brainer to because you're already invested, so to speak, in OA, or was it more practically easy in terms of signing on to the program itself, or both?
Both,
Yeah,
both, right? So it was obviously in alignment. It's a an open investment that's totally in alignment with our strategy. So that
right.
was an easy part, and just the way that the model works. It's simple. It's no more challenging for us or complicated for us, to be invoiced and pay for this than it was to pay for the front list when it was behind the paywall. It's really the same back end workflow for us. So from that aspect, it's very easy. And we actually even, and we'll get into this more, I know as well, but we're actually participating through a library consortium for this.
Mhm.
So that is another layer of simplicity for us.
Right, right. And then just sticking with you a little bit more, Curtis, so you're on an advisory board for this project, or I'm wondering what's been the board's perspective on the project's life cycle so far, and anything extra interesting or surprising that's developed along the way.
I wouldn't say anything surprising, and just to clarify, the board we're talking about is MIT Press's Library Advisory Board, which
Hmm.
actually advises across, both on the monograph side and the journal side. I guess something that is surprising is that, I've been on these types of advisory boards, for some number of years, and it's not very exciting being on one of these advisory boards when the publisher is just talking about how to increase traditional sales behind the paywall, right?
Mm.
Like, I've had enough of those conversations, and I'm not interested in advising in that capacity anymore. So to be on this board at this time with the really diverse, inclusive group of library folks that they have recruited for it, like, it's been really stimulating, and it's been remarkably collaborative with
Mm.
Emily and her colleagues. And it just seems like they're, if one thing kind of defines this open access transition moment, and I think we'll talk about this more as well, it's this partnership that is developed between libraries and publishers.
Hmm.
And that is not what we had in the past. In the past, it was a very transactional relationship. And I think this advisory board really captures that in a way that is been exciting and fun and productive and collaborative, and it's just been phenomenal to be involved with Emily and her colleagues on that board.
That's excellent. And so, Emily, what have you learned so far as institutions have signed on or not signed on? Can you characterize some of those discussions you've been having with libraries, what they're liking, what they're not liking?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and in fact, sort of connecting to what Curtis just mentioned about the library advisory board, in terms of working more directly with libraries and taking a more of a partnership and relationship approach. MIT Press launched the direct ebooks platform at the beginning of 2019,
Mm.
which has in the process allowed us to have a home for this model without sort of having that control, I suppose, of our ebooks distribution. It would have made it more challenging, I think, to sort of consider this model and what we're doing. And with that came a lot more direct connection with libraries. And so we've been lucky in a lot of ways to sort of have started that process of making more direct connection with librarians and what libraries are doing, to then be able to build on that as we move into this new model. And so um, in terms of moving from there into the conversations we then started having about direct to open, we have had a lot of really positive conversations. And one of the challenges is that we know more about what the supporting libraries have to say about the model than we know about those who have kept silent. So that's something we need to think a little bit more about how we find out what the challenges are. But from those that are not signing up or who've not already sort of actively had a conversation and then chosen not to support. But I can say, a few of the challenges that stand out that have come up in conversations, most of which boil down to time and money, honestly. Yep. So we don't have the budget is one. And that can be, we don't have the budget in a number of ways. That can be our budget is too tied up in a serials budget that we have allocated already, and we can't move anything to monographs, or we don't yet have an open access fund, or they're not yet, that library isn't perhaps yet thinking proactively about spending on open access in the way that Iowa State is yet. Though we have seen a number of libraries come on board that are saying to us, this is the first project that we've supported for open access. We've been looking something that will fit what we do, or what our faculty need, and this is sort of fits in both buckets, in that as supporting libraries, they get access to the back file of our monographs, which won't go open access, but are there as sort of part of an incentive, and do increase access as well, especially for libraries that otherwise have not been able to purchase the content. Right. So we just don't have the budget. These are new models. We don't have time to review them yet, but check back in later. We want to support the model, but we'd rather support something that covers more presses, is another one that we've heard. Less often than we had thought we might hear, but that I think has been something that, where initiatives are new and the money that's allocated to open access is small, sort of want to have the most impact with that fund as possible. And so I think that can seem like the best way to do that would be to cover more presses in a sort of an aggregation type approach. And I understand that. At the same time, I mean, I think that part of the challenge is that we have to start somewhere. Mm-hmm. We can do what we can with what we have, and I know that we'll come back to this later. But we can build a model that is usable by other presses, and that's what we hope is the case with Direct to Open. Yeah. So we're starting with MIT Press, and we certainly hope that's not the end of it. But so those are some of the core challenges we've heard from libraries. But on the other hand, really, it's been overwhelmingly positive, the feedback in terms of the fee structure. For instance, there's we built quite a granular tier structure. So there's a 16-tier structure, so that for the smallest institutions, the fee is in reach. And so we have had smaller institutions interested and support the model, and have been really pleased to see that there is a structure that takes account of their smaller budget. There's a real understanding and appreciation of the individual benefit with the back file access and the discounting on our trade books, and also the more equitable approach for authors. So we've even had libraries sort of come back and say, oh, okay, so we're going to support the model, but then so what's the BPC for our authors after we support this? And to sort of be able to say to libraries, no, the idea is that once this model is up and running, anybody who has their manuscript accepted and publishes a monograph with us can have their book published open access, and nothing else needs to be done in terms of finding funding. And that's really exciting. But as Curtis said earlier, we were hoping that it would be easy to understand, easy to implement. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes there have been these moments where libraries have said, wait, so what do we pay for the backlist, or what's the extra, as if there's sort of a hidden, because it does seem, I think, that it might be a bit too good to be true. So the equity for authors, and then the hope that this is part of a larger shift towards open access for monographs, and that's sort of the structural piece, that there's a positive contribution that the model's making for a larger shift. So that those are both challenges and positive things we've heard.
Excellent. So in January, MIT Press announced the publication of a white paper, which is incredibly fascinating to read because it on the direct to open model. which is available now to be downloaded from MIT Press Direct. We'll include a link to that in the episode notes once this goes live. It's a really detailed description of how the model was built, its overall structure, and important projections for participation and ultimately longevity of the program. Emily, can you talk about the modeling you did, which is one of the points that the white paper covers, to determine the quantity and types of institutions that would sign on? And then can you report on how well the current cohort of participating institutions matches up with those projections?
Yeah, and I'll do my best to sort of honor the work that Raim Crow's done as the architect of the model. So really, he's really the best place to answer these questions, I think. But ultimately, what we wanted to do in this modeling was make sure that, beyond the core need to be financially sustainable, so that we can continue to do what we do in producing our monographs, is not just rely on a pure FTE or Carnegie classification for tiering. Mm-hmm. And we knew that finding the right tiering structure can be challenging, or is using those sorts of classifications can be challenging because there's such a range of budget sizes within each Carnegie classification, for instance.
Right.
So we made a fee structure that was more granular and we did use size and type data, for instance, using IPEDS data to look at the ways we might set tiering. But we also gathered as much data as we could on collections budget sizes. And we also pulled in our own revenue data. We looked at things like WorldCat holdings to understand historical purchasing patterns. So all of those pieces were taken into account to try to understand and set the pricing levels, and also, or to set the fee structure, and also to estimate what percentage of the overall number of that type of institution might participate,
right?
If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So we've seen the highest amount of contribution and above estimated level at the top end. So yep. With the PhD institutions that are larger than 20,000, we predicted that we would have 49 of those institutions come on board as supporters, and we have 64 already. So that's been really exciting to see, because, of course, they are the institutions with the larger budgets that have the highest fee in the table. So those institutions each make the largest or an outsized contribution to the success of the model, if that makes sense, just sort of in pure dollar terms.
Yep.
On the other hand, for a lot of the much smaller institutions, so associates colleges smaller than 5,000, we don't have any institutions in that particular category. So the smaller institutions have been harder to reach, or we don't have a lot of those institutions on board yet. So that's a piece of the puzzle that we're working on.
You just heard from Emily Farrell, Library Partnerships and Sales Lead at the MIT Press, and Curtis Brundy, Associate University Librarian at Iowa State University. This 4-part series is brought to you with support from MIT Press. Join us next week when we look more closely at the buy side of the equation. How pricing is tiered according to institution types, the lengthy process of buying into open access, and how a commitment to OA can cause a ripple effect throughout the institution.
But coming out of the pandemic and the lessons learned there around how important it is, if we want to accelerate knowledge production, if we want to speed up science, like, this content needs to be open around the world to the folks who can use it and solve public health problems in the face of a crisis like COVID-19. So to me, I think these are accumulating, and progress is really accelerating. And again, I mean, I've been in this position for 5 years, and it's been a drastic change, not just in local practice, but how this is all playing out across the world with publishers, with funders, with library consortia. Things are really on the move toward open right now.
As always, sponsorship and advertising for the Authority File podcast are handled by Choice's advertising manager, Pam Marino, and all of our episodes are produced and edited by Choice's digital media producer, Sabrina Kofer. That's all for this week. Thanks for joining us.